I think I can't remember if we mentioned this before we or after we finished recording last week, but I did buy something else that we didn't discuss, which is an Instax Mini 9. And you didn't know what this was until I sent you the link.
No, and given the name and given the pictures on the website, I figured this is a teeny tiny little camera, right? But I think I'm wrong about that. Am I?
It is a camera. It's an instant camera, so like a Polaroid. But the pictures are a little bit smaller. The prints are like about the size of a credit card.
Okay.
But the camera is quite large. These are
give me an idea, like how big compared to something. I don't know. It looks like it's fairly deep, right? Because it has to hold a cartridge of film, I guess.
Yeah, so it's pretty thick. And it's pretty much square. So maybe like sort of two iPhones next to each other. That sort of surface area, and then as you say, it kind of holds a cartridge that's, I don't know, what would you compare it to, like maybe like a cigarette packet, maybe a little bit smaller, that something like that, which sort of slots in the back, and you get 10 prints out of it for each cartridge. This was something that Jess wanted for when we went on holidays and stuff, and then I was like, yeah, that's fine, you can buy, we'll go buy one, whatever. And then as soon as we got it, I was like, oh, well, maybe I should buy one for myself. I didn't. We only have one. We're not
good.
But I was pretty close to buying myself one because I was like, oh, this is really cool. I want my own just so that I can say I've got it because it's electronics. I want all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's got like, it comes in like 5 colors, it looks like, and it's 75 pounds.
Yeah, you can get them a little bit. I think they discount them quite heavily all over the place because we got it a bit cheaper than that.
Yeah, I just went to the link on the website, which took me to some website. It took me to a Fuji. It's made by Fujifilm, I guess, because it took me to the Fujifilm United Kingdom website.
Yes, yeah, it's made by Fujifilm, so it's it's not like it's sort of some random brand you've never heard of. It's a decent camera company for decent, I guess.
Sure,
they're well known at least. And they do have some, like, I guess, quote unquote, more grown up looking ones where they have square prints rather than the prints being the size of a credit card, like oblong.
Right. These are a little bit
cameras.
Yeah, it's a little bit like an Instagram type of shot almost because it's a vertical shot.
Right, exactly. And they have a bunch, like I say, they do some more expensive cameras. Like you start going to the square ones, you can spend upwards of £250.
Oh, wow.
For basically the same thing. I mean, some of the more expensive ones have some extra features. Like this basically has a little light on the front to tell you which thing to spin it round to, I guess, so it can focus and get the light and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
But there's basically just 4 settings. You just point it, move it to where the light says, and like so everything's kind of manual. Like it's not doing any of this stuff automatically.
But it does do selfies or regular shots. So that it looks like there's like a little selfie screen on the front of the camera so that you can hold it out and take a picture of yourself.
Don't be fooled. It's not a screen. That is a shiny piece of plastic. It is a mirror.
All right.
That's not a screen. There's no screens on this camera at all. It has, you can probably see it in the picture, but there's a little round button to the left of the lens, just below the viewfinder.
Right.
That little round button, that just takes the picture. Like, that's basically all there is to it.
All right.
You can't really do... That's basically all it does. And it's kind of fun because it's not too expensive. We're not spending multiple hundreds of pounds on this.
Sure.
And we tried it out, and, like, there is just something nice about just instantly having a photo.
Yeah,
and you
nice.
can't... You know what it's like. You go to a... wherever you go to a tourist attraction and you're taking 100 photos and picking the best one, or taking a selfie and you'll take a bunch, and then we print photos out and things like that, but we'll be looking through multiple versions before we print one out, whereas with this it's like, well, you take it and it's going to print it out and it is just what it is.
Yeah.
You don't really you haven't got any choice over that.
Yeah, that is nice. I mean, one of the problems I have is I always do that. I take too many photos and then I never get around to really messing around with them and making them, tweaking them, making them look nicer. And I basically never print anything. But I don't know. I mean, that is the thing about taking lots and lots of photos is sometimes you just end up with a whole bunch of work on your hands that you don't have time for.
Yeah, exactly. And, we like to print out a few photos and maybe we'll put them in frames or, stick them around the house on the notice board, that kind of thing. So this is kind of perfect for that. I mean, each cartridge has 10 shots in it. And that's kind of where the variation comes with this, because you can buy ones that have the sort of the white frame on the outside. You can buy some that are different colors, like pink and blue, red, that kind of thing. You can get ones with patterns. You can get black and white film. So the photos just come out black and white. They also have some like filter, little sort of plastic caps that go over the lens to give you like a red or different colored filters over the top. So you can get quite a bit of variation out of it, considering it's sort of quite a simple camera.
Yeah, I was just looking. It looks like this is available in the U.S. too, and on Amazon in the U.S. it's about $50.
Yeah, that sounds a lot closer to what we were seeing when we were looking around for them.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, that's cool. That's an interesting buy. I can't say that I've bought anything along those lines anytime recently. Although I did I guess I did over the holidays, buy a bunch of camera gear, but not that kind of camera gear. What I do know that I think you're holding out on me, because last time we spoke, I tried really hard to talk you into a 2DS, and I think that I succeeded. Although it was a little touch and go there, given your eBay experience, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, firstly, part of the problem, I've wanted one for a while, but there really isn't that many games that I'm interested in playing on it, because either they exist on iOS or on the Mac or PS4 or whatever. There's a bunch of games that have, that are available in other places. So there's only really a handful of games, and I've sort of looked at it every now and again. I think, it's quite expensive, but recently, I guess last year, I think they released the 2DS XL, which is, basically a 3DS, but without the 3D part of it, presumably to reduce costs.
Right.
But after we recorded and I sort of started looking around, I was like, it's still quite expensive for a console
that's as old
essentially is dead at this point.
Right.
We can't be more than a year or two before they're going to stop making these, or at least we're not going to see any more games.
Right. Yeah, I think the last Direct didn't have any mention of the 3DS in it.
Right, and I think that makes sense because, Nintendo have got a new, better handheld console. I mean, arguably it's not great because it's still a big console.
Right.
Like, as much as it's handheld, it's not the kind of thing that I want to take on a plane or, for a short journey or sort of lug around places.
Yeah.
Whereas the DS is obviously a lot smaller.
And that's a really good point, because I have found myself not taking my Switch on trips, because I have a couple of times, and either, I don't know, I was busy doing other things and I never really played it all that much. And given how much it weighs and how big it is, especially if I have other things with me, like a laptop or other electronics, it's just a little too big. If they could shrink it, especially, I guess, the maybe the width of it more than anything else. I mean, I wouldn't want the screen to be smaller, and I really wouldn't want the controllers to be smaller. So I don't know that there's a ton that they can do, but it is a bit of a thing to lug around, especially if you're going on an airplane somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So when I got my Switch, whenever it was, a year and a half or something ago, I assumed I would take it more places, but to be honest, I don't, because once I've put it in a case, I'm not just going to chuck it in my bag, it's a fairly hefty bit of equipment. So, the 2DS or 3DS or whatever is a lot better solution to that, but we've kind of got sidetracked. But yeah, because of the price, I sort of started looking around for second-hand ones on eBay, because they're relatively new anyway, but there's a lot of people selling them because they buy them for their kids, they don't want them, that kind of thing. And it turns out people kind of pay brand new prices for second-hand 3DSs.
Wow.
And 2DSs, which is very strange to me, but, I don't know why people do this, but they do. And I bid on a few auctions, and I was literally looking at saving maybe £5 or £10, and I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to buy a brand new one.
Yeah, unless you can save at least, I don't know, 30, 50 pounds. Why would you bother?
Right, exactly. And eventually I managed to find one for £100 brand new, which is £30 below retail.
Oh, wow. How'd you do
so
that?
Sort of,
just a special somebody was having?
Yeah, just to be honest, I think I went to like the second page of Google, which is not something I normally do.
You had to work for that one, I guess.
Yeah, but saving £30 meant that, the two games that I initially picked up, which was Mario Kart and Ocarina of Time, that £30 covered that.
Right.
So yeah, I did get one. I totally blame you. I'll send you an invoice.
All right. I'm glad though that it still has the virtual console. There's a lot of stuff there that you can get a little bit here and there, and it's cheap. It's a good way to play some of those classic games on a screen that's much nicer. Which is what I did with that Zelda game that was just announced, but the old version. And so as bad as I may have made you spend money, the reality is that since we spoke, I've done much worse and purchased a Mac Mini because.
Wait, what? Didn't you already have one?
Yes, of course, but now I have two Mac Minis, Rob.
Oh, okay.
I have an
My
old
mistake.
I have an old Mac Mini that's dog slow. It's like a 2014, I want to say, something like that. It was a very base model Mini that I used for just writing, and it's totally fine for that, writing and web surfing and stuff. But I needed something. My MacBook Pro has been causing me no end of grief, and it's been getting worse. It's been to the point where I have to force shut it down 2 or 3 times a day because apps are just hanging. I can't figure out why. I don't know what's going on. I will admit that I do install an awful lot of beta software and other things because that's part of my job these days. And so I might have caused it myself, but I decided to take the opportunity to get a high-end Mac Mini that is just blazingly fast and amazing. I love it, but I've only barely got it set up. It came 2 days ago. I've been really busy this week, and I've done, because I've been having so many problems with the MacBook Pro, I didn't want to transfer over all the apps and things from that machine. So I've been setting it up as a new Mac, which is just an awful experience because, so I started out with the 1Password Dropbox dance, got those in, and then got email in so I could get all my software licenses. And then not long after that, and then I let everything sync because I had a lot of iCloud stuff that then had to be synced and a bunch of Dropbox. And then once that was working, I got Backblaze on there and started doing the first initial giant backup at night. And then I went through and picked like the first dozen or so apps, basically things to edit podcasts, record and edit, and also write. And so I only have like a dozen apps on it so far. And I'm going to be really picky about what goes on this. And I am going to keep the MacBook Pro sitting here on my desk with a separate HDMI connection to my external display so that I can keep the betas and the software that isn't necessarily stuff that I would install myself, but I'm testing it for some reason for Mac Stories. Keeping that on the MacBook Pro, where it's kind of off to the side. I'll also use that for the OS 10. Oh, listen to me, OS 10. The Mac OS beta when it comes out over the summer, so that I can keep hopefully a fairly simple machine available, which is the Mac Mini, for doing important businessy production type stuff, because I really can't afford to have, and it did happen to me once where I finished recording app stories and I tried to stop the recording in Audio Hijack, and the app was completely frozen. And the problem I'm having isn't a particular app's problem. So I don't think it was Audio Hijack, because this has happened to a bunch of different apps. But I had that moment where it's like, did I just record an entire episode that I've lost the audio for? Unfortunately, I had not, because Audio Hijack is so good about recording the bits directly to the disk right away. But it was a bit of a scare, so I got the Mini.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I've had sort of similar problems with my Mac Mini. I think mine's probably about the same age as yours, and I only use it for Plex now, but I did have a bunch of other stuff on there, and even just having a couple of different things on there, like I had 1Password, and I was sort of using Dropbox as a semi backup type thing. The files would go there as well because it's Dropbox.
Right.
And it just got to the point where I had to wipe it, just put Plex on there, and that was it. Because if I add anything else to it, it just, I'll start using Plex on my Apple TV, and the whole Mac Mini will just crash or just stop working.
Yeah.
I think the problem is those machines weren't particularly good when they came out to begin with, because they were sort of a downgrade from the previous models.
Right.
So, yeah, I can totally understand why you'd want to go out and get one of the newer ones.
Yeah, the old Mac Mini that I have is being used for exactly that reason. It's being used as a Plex server and that kind of thing. But the problem I've been having has been on the 2016 MacBook Pro, which is kind of annoying. And the reality is I don't really want a laptop any longer to be my main machine, because I don't travel that much. And so I'll have it when I do travel, but I really, the display sleep issues that all Mac laptops seem to have, the cruddy keyboard, the issues with the software freezing up, it all got to the point where it's like, you know what, this is actually keeping me from getting things done. And so the Mini, I mean, jury's still out because I haven't really used it in any kind of serious work yet, but I have played with it enough to realize that it's incredibly fast compared to my 2016 MacBook Pro. The SSDs are just faster. I got more RAM, so I got the high end i7. I guess it's 6 cores. I want to say, I should know this.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, 6-core processor with 32 gigs of RAM and a terabyte SSD. So it's not the 2 terabyte, which would cost another like $1,200 or something like that, I think. But it's a pretty high end one, and I have, it made sense to go with the Mini, and a Mini that I think rivals at least some of the iMac Pro models in terms of performance, because I've already got a 4K display, and now I've got a Mini that has a whole bunch of ports in the back that I can plug all my stuff into and not worry about having, hubs and dongles and all that jazz to deal with. The only thing is that I've set it up behind the monitor where it's just not super easily accessible. And so it's a little bit of a hassle when I want to do things like get an SD card and offload photos and that sort of thing. But I have a solution for that too, Rob.
Okay.
You want to hear about this?
Is it more dongles?
No, it's
okay.
It's a wireless dongle, I guess. I got a Western Digital My Passport wireless SSD. So,
is this the thing you mentioned last time? I think
maybe I did. Oh,
you mentioned a couple of wireless things.
I did.
But I wasn't sure what you were doing with them.
Yes, I didn't go with the hyper expensive Narbox 2.0, which is still not.
Sure.
That was a Kickstarter project, and I think they're beta testing it. My understanding is that it's not generally available yet. This still a bit pricey, but what it is, it's basically an SSD drive connected to a battery, a portable battery, like I forget how many milliwatt hours it is, maybe 6,000, something like that. A pretty good size battery, so it can charge your phone. It can double as that too. And it's got an SD card slotted in it and a USB-A slot, and it can be connected either with a wire or wirelessly through a local Wi-Fi network, and you can then dump photos, video, whatever onto this drive from an SD card or another external drive, and then wirelessly transfer it to a Mac or to an iOS device.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so this for me, what this is going to be the photography solution and the video solution for when I travel. And it just so happens that I'm about to travel because I'm going to GDC next week, and this little thing is coming with me. Now, the only thing about it is, now they have two different versions. They have there's a regular hard drive model that Federico got that one, and then there's this ultra fancy SSD model. And the SSD one comes with a little rubber bumper around it, which is really kind of silly. It's a little loose, but I guess I won't even say what it's like, but it's a little loose, and it's designed so that if you drop it, supposedly you can drop it from 3 feet and the thing will survive. I'm not planning to test that since I spent a fair amount of money on it, but it's more rugged, I guess, for traveling, so I can throw it in the bottom of a backpack and hopefully not have to worry about it. But I'm going to take it with me to GDC. It's a little heavy, gotta say, a little heavy, but I guess, batteries, if nothing else, are quite heavy. And,
Sure.
But I'm going to use it for that when I'm taking pictures, maybe doing some video. I found out today that I have to get special dispensation to take video inside Moscone, because otherwise I'll have to hire a union laborer.
Okay.
This is a thing. But but press are allowed to take video as long as they get a special sticker on their badge. So I'm in the process of obtaining that special dispensation from the union in San Francisco.
Very exciting.
Yeah. I'm learning all sorts of new things about conventions. So there's that.
Nothing people love more than regulations and paperwork.
Regulations and paperwork. It has been my life. You know all too well. There's lots of other regulations and paperwork that I've been dealing with too. And so I spent a little bit more than a 2DS.
Yeah, that's probably not as fun.
No, it's probably not. But I actually
I don't think your wireless hard drive is as fun as Ocarina of Time.
No,
that's what I'm going to come and.
All right,
that's my conclusion.
You win for fun factor. Definitely win for that. I win peace of mind for not having to worry about my Mac crashing while I'm doing something important.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely more important.
The wireless drive was more of a, I have an excuse to get this because I'm about to go on a trip, so I'm going to get it now instead of sometime down the road. That one is really kind of that's more of a present to John.
Sure. Well, lucky you. You're very nice to yourself to buy yourself a gift like that.
By the way, I want to give a special shout out to my sister-in-law, Debbie. Just saying. This is now a bit, okay?
This is a bit we're doing. Okay. This is a weekly segment.
She's out driving somewhere. She's listening. She's just wondering how I come up with all this money to buy these things. So, hey, Debbie. All right.
Well, there we go.
Let's move on to, I have a question for you. I need some advice.
Yeah. Okay.
So, should I sign an NDA to go to a party to get snacks and free beer?
Sure. Yeah. Maybe. What?
This is a GDC thing, right? And
right.
All right. So I got invited to a party, and it's at Zynga. How about that?
Oh my! Wow.
The makers of all things coins and psychologically manipulative on the App Store. So, and I looked at the pictures, and they look like they have really fancy, nice offices that they've made with those piles of coins. And I thought, you know what? I'd like to see what this Zynga thing's all about. Like, where do the people who go there and make these games? What's it like to be a Zynga person? Because the party's at their office. And there's all these warnings all over it that to go to the party, you have to sign an NDA on the way in, which I thought was just completely hilarious and also ridiculous at the same time. And then I talked to my son, who goes to school out there. He said, "Oh, Dad, everybody does that."
I see. Oh, so right. Okay.
You can't have your any of your friends come visit you at an office without having them sign an NDA most times. Which was news to me. I mean, I will say, when we were at WWC, going to Twitter for a few years and watching the keynote, that Twitter didn't make us sign NDAs. Now they did have security people watching us. Like if you had to go to the bathroom, you had to walk out of the conference room, go down these stairs, which kind of skirted the cafeteria, and then there was a bathroom right there. And if you strayed from the straight path to the bathroom, you were they were all over you, because they didn't want you to see the food in the cafeteria.
Sure. Now you say it's at an office, I can kind of understand it. And if you're going to get some free food and beer, and you get to go to a party, sure, why not? Why not? Maybe I'm going to start doing that when people come to my house.
Yeah, sign an NDA. No taking snaps of my stuff and then posting them online. That's you don't want. You gotta pay me a license fee to do Instagram from my house.
Yeah, you're not allowed to talk about anything you've seen.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't really care much of one way or the other, and I'm not actually even sure I'm going to go to this. But I thought it was pretty funny that there are NDAs involved with going to parties in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's, I think, a different world. It's not
really
something I've come
is.
across, but there you go.
Well, I'll let you know how it is in a few weeks.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good show in a few weeks because you're going to GDC. We potentially will have the Apple event, or it might be just before that. So, we're going to have a bunch of stuff. I mean, we have got something in the notes of speaking of for the Apple event, which is this TV service.
Yeah. That there were things that came out as we record this just this morning saying that Apple's gonna go with kind of partner content first and then their original content later.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting way to go. I mean, I guess it makes sense if they haven't got all of their content done, or they haven't got enough content. I mean, I can't imagine they would be able to make enough content to fill up a service, at least in the first, the 2 years or whatever they've been doing it. Because movies take a long time, TV shows make a long time. Even if you had everybody ready, they still take a long time. And you've got to find people and directors and actors and everything else that's involved in that. So, yeah, it's really hard to know if this is something I'm even interested in, or if it's even going to launch in the UK.
Right.
They might come out and say, "Oh, this is US only," at which point I can just switch off and go, "Oh, forget it then."
Yeah,
I hope that's not the case, because I'd like the option of another streaming service, but it's really hard to know without seeing what content they're going to present us with.
Well, they've been doing some content deals with studios in Europe, and I know that some of those, I think, are designed to deal with local regulations about, having a certain amount of content coming from that particular country. Like I think France has a rule like that.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And so I think that there's a better chance that this service will be global to some degree. I mean, I don't expect it to be like the App Store, which is in like 150 countries, but I kind of expect to see this in, Canada, a big chunk of Europe, the UK, Australia, maybe like Japan. I don't know. I kind of expect to see it in a lot of countries, more so than like Apple News, which is still, I think, only in the US, Canada, and Australia at this point, right?
Yeah, I think, well, we have it here as well.
Oh, that's right.
So, 3 or 4 countries. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is what the event is for. It's going to tell us presumably all the questions that we have. But as it stands right now, I'm just a bit like, well, to be honest, I've already got Netflix. I've already got Amazon Prime. They both kind of cover most of the stuff. I mean, unless Apple are buying up a big chunk from some studio or some TV network or something like that we can't get anywhere else, I'm really not sure where this is going to fall.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm a little surprised at the idea that they would go with the partner content first, because it sounds a lot like Amazon Prime channels. Just kind of making it easier to buy the content within the TV app and not have to have separate apps that you get kicked out to whenever you want to watch a show on a particular network. Those things are nice to have, but those are just kind of enhancements to the existing TV app, whereas it just feels to me like it would be better to launch that alongside the original content, because that's what people are going to really get excited about, not whether it's easier for them to pay the fee to get a particular channel.
Yeah, I don't really know. It's going to be a weird event. It's potentially going to be really boring, because it might just be the TV service and the news service. And I think as much as people love TV and movies and stuff, I mean, watching a conference, an announcement about that is never going to be that interesting, I don't think.
There is going to be such a level of snark and unhappiness on Twitter about this, with especially the I would call like old line Apple people, because it's going to be a lot like when Drake came out and they announced Apple Music, which was a pretty bad WWDC presentation, particularly when you're
so bad.
Particularly when your audience is developers. This, of course, won't be that, so it'll be for a broader press audience. But yeah, I think a lot of people will have that reaction.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
I'm looking forward to it personally. I mean, for me, I've got Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. I don't really count Prime because and Amazon's done a great job with this. I would be a Prime member regardless of whether they had video. And I have been for years. So I don't really count that as like TV I pay for. It's just TV I get because I'm already a Prime member. So I have Netflix, Hulu, and HBO now, and I could see replacing HBO with Apple. I'm not sure I want to.
That's interesting.
I don't think I want to pay for 4. I think HBO maybe I would dip in and out of, but I think because I think Apple and HBO are going to end up being somewhat similar because it's going to be, HBO has its core of very popular, very high quality shows, but then it's just got like a fair amount of filler stuff, like older movies, kind of good movies, but not usually more than a handful of good movies. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely. As I say, I think it has to all come down to what they're offering.
Right.
I don't even think price is really that important. I think that, they go anywhere between $5 and $25. It really probably doesn't matter that much as long as they've got decent stuff people want to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. We'll see. I guess we'll see. I'll be. I'm gonna probably be missing that event because I'm gonna be traveling during it. But we'll definitely talk about it when we get back together.
Yeah, I guess it's just under 2 weeks now before the event, and as you say, you're going to be away, so I guess we'll be back just after that. So we should we should be able to at least, one, is it in the US only, and 2, are we actually interested in it? Which I think is I think that's what everybody's sort of looking for right now.
Yep, absolutely. So, Rob, I wanted to kind of finish up today by telling you about an Electron app that I installed because you know me, I'm not a big fan, right?
Right. Yeah, this is not. You have famously, I don't know if it's famously, but you've definitely gone on a couple of rants about Electron in the past.
Yes, I have upset many a web person with my displeasure of Electron apps because you know what, Electron apps are what Marzipan is responding to because they don't run very well on a Mac. If you're on a portable Mac, they slow things down, and the interactions with them and the way they're designed is just not very Mac-like. Now, a lot of people would say the same thing about the Marzipan apps we've seen so far. Totally get that. But I think that at the end of the day, when we finally do get Marzipan, my hope is at least, and it remains to be seen, I guess, is that we will see apps that just are better on a Mac because they're using Apple's own frameworks. Now, I will only actually install an Electron app if I have a really good reason at this point. And I kind of did. I mean, I've been working on some projects at Mac Stories, and one of the things that we use a lot of the time is notes, shared notes, just like you and I do for the show notes for this episode. And so the problem was though is Notes doesn't scale very, very well because once you have more than a handful of notes with somebody that you've got shared, it's like, okay, well, what note is that in? Is it the note about this topic? Is it the note about that topic? And so I installed Notion because it's kind of like a wiki. You can just create, a page for a project, and then you can link other pages to it, and you can have a page for tasks, a page for calendars, a page for notes and research. You can, there's a lot of templates built around Notion that allow you to do that. Now, I don't love Notion. I don't think the iOS app is very good. It doesn't have much keyboard support. It behaves differently than a lot of iOS apps. And the Mac app is just a thin wrapper around a web view and works so differently from any kind of any expectation you have about usability of Mac software that it's really hard to kind of get used to. That said, I still think, it's a pretty good product. The other thing it doesn't have, like, for instance, I think that like at Mac Stories, we could potentially move to Notion 100% if it had a web API, but it doesn't have an API. So we can't do all of our crazy stuff that we do where we're moving stuff around between like Trello and Slack and all this kind of thing from iOS, out of an email app or whatever it happens to be. So I don't think it's like a replacement for things that I'm already using, like Slack or Trello or any of that. But for very specific tasks where you have a project where there's a limited number of people and you just have a lot of information that you have to synthesize and organize, it's actually pretty nice. Notwithstanding the fact that it is, again, an Electron app. I'm going to try to stay off the Mac with it and use it mostly on iOS, but I'll probably use it both places.
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, I always, for a bunch of people that are using Notion, for various different things, because I guess it's fairly open, as you say. It's like creating your own wiki which is a bit more interactive than just a bunch of text. And it's a fairly new product, but I think what you're concerned about is that the fact that it's an Electron app, that's just going to be their app forever, which, as you say, maybe is a shame if it would act a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, the actual product, I've had a play around with it. We were looking to see if it would fit some stuff we wanted to do at work, but it wasn't quite what we were looking for. But I mean, yeah, aside from the fact that you've got to use an Electron app, which, I'm sure hurts you quite deeply.
Right.
It is it's a pretty nice, well thought out product.
Yeah, one of the little things that I noticed today that I actually kind of like a lot is that it's got private and public sections to it. So like I can work on a note describing some bit of research I'm doing or whatever, and just keep it private until I've got it to where I think it's ready to share, and then I can just drag it into the workspace, and then it's part of the the team view, which is really nice. And then there's it has things like, there's a lot of things borrowed from other things like Slack, where you can reply people so they'll get a notification that they've been tagged in some sort of comment or they've been assigned a task. That's that kind of thing. I don't know. I mean, it's something that I think will scale a lot better than shared notes, which I've been getting lost in a sea of shared notes lately, and this was a good opportunity with some new projects to put everything in Notion, and I've only been using it for about 3 or 4 days now, but so far I've been pretty happy with the way it scales and the way it works, because there's enough different kinds of pages that you can add, whether it's schedules through calendars or tables or checklists or outlines, that just about anything you would want is there and can be organized into its own page or section or whatever. No,
so I'm glad that you found a decent use for it, and as you say, like with notes, like once you've got even sort of 3 or 4 shared notes, it starts getting a bit too much. Like I end up pinning mine to the top if they're shared notes. Like, I have our shared note pinned.
I've done that too.
But the problem is, I'm now pinning every shared note I've got. So now I've got like, 8 pinned notes. At which point, they might as well not be pinned at all. I might as well just use the alphabetical list.
The other thing, the other thing I've noticed with notes is that when someone goes into a note and looks at it, even if they don't change anything, it sometimes sends a notification to the other person, which I find kind of annoying, because I'll have a shared note with like Federico and he'll go in there and read it and I'll think he's changed something. Then I'll go in and I'll do the highlighting to see what's been changed, and nothing's been changed. And I've just just kind of wasted time. I don't need to know when he looks at it. I just need to know, when he's changed it. And that was starting to drive me a little crazy too.
Yeah, I have the same problem. I sometimes edit mine and it tells me that I've edited it.
Yes, I've done that too.
And I'm like, how is that useful to anybody? You must know that it's me that's editing this note. But, who knows? I mean, Notes still serves... I still like Notes because it does what it does reasonably well.
Yes.
Aside from the complaints we've just had.
Right. All of these platforms too, the thing that drives me a little bit bananas is that you have to kind of live inside them. It's not that easy to import rich text or whatever into them, because you end up with, like, I took a bulleted list that I had in Ulysses, for instance, or maybe it was Notes, and I put that into into Notion, and I ended up with a bulleted list with a bunch of dashes next to the bullets and then the words. And it's like, really? You didn't know that the dashes should be the bullets? I mean, it's just messy to kind of move. But if you stay in these products 100%, that's not an issue. But I want to give you an Electron check, Rob. I think I've got 4 Electron apps right now running on my Mac.
Wow,
Yes, I have Notion, I have GitHub Desktop, I have let's see, Slack, and Trello.
Oh, I didn't even know Trello had an app. Although I guess it's just an Electron app, so yeah.
Yes, it's fine. It's fine, and I try to keep them all closed because even on my super fast new Mini, they are slow to open and slow to load because they're loading a web page basically inside their little thin wrapper, and it drives me a little bananas that the data is having to be pulled from a server somewhere instead of just being there on my Mac. The one that really doesn't bother me at all is GitHub Desktop, but it really doesn't do very much. I mean, it's a pretty basic app. It's just for pushing and pulling repos and looking at track changes. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah. Well, there we go. I get you didn't go too ranty today, which is good.
No, you know why? Because I have hope now, Rob. I have hope that we're going to vanquish Electron from the Mac with Marzipan, and I know that's probably, don't at me on that one, because I know that there's a lot of people who have very strong feels about that. But that's what I hope happens.
Well, there we go. So as we said, I guess we'll be recording probably just after the Apple event at some point, maybe a week after that.
Yeah.
So, we can gather our thoughts and see what we think about it. And I assume we will have other things to talk about as well.
We will indeed, yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll be back in a couple of weeks then.
All right. See you later, Rob.